No one needs to remind you presidential power is a currency. You spend it when you think there's going to be a return. So we have this scene on the Capitol. President and the First Lady get on Air Force One. They land in Rome. Nothing. No vote. Is it just because everything, including the Democratic Party, is broken in 2021? Or is there something I'm not seeing here?
You promised us, Joe Biden, that you were going to go there and get things done. And whether it's fair or not, right, the president only has so much power in this. But he promised that you were going to make things happen. Things were going to get going. And they're not feeling that. And you're seeing that reflected in his polling and how people think he is handling and has handled these negotiations and his polling overall.
She writes in The New Yorker, in 2020, Biden campaigned as a deal maker, not a Trump. I could sell you the Brooklyn Bridge type deal maker, but an actual Washington insider who can make this town work again type deal maker. This is why the stakes for him now are so high. It's become a basic test of his ability to deliver.
Today, the power of no was used to at least stop, for now, for this week, something that the progressives do want, which is the infrastructure bill.
Well, not just something the progressives want, Lawrence, but something the president desperately wanted and Nancy Pelosi wanted twice now. Twice. There was a deadline a little over a month ago. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden pushed hard, and then had to back down in the face of this dynamic. Progressives not happy because of Manchin and Sinema, what they were not saying at the time. Now, this time we are here again, a month later, with a more significant deadline, I would say, in the sense that Joe Biden really wanted, the White House wanted him to be able to go to to Scotland, to Glasgow in particular, even more than the G20, with a genuine climate commitment in his hand, and to be able to walk in with that kind of credibility. And they're also looking at those at the off-year elections on Tuesday, right? On Tuesday in Virginia and New Jersey, with concern, right? Because every time this deadline gets pushed out later, more events happen in the political environment that could make it more complicated to pass this bill. So they really wanted to get this done today, and again, it happened. So, we're hearing a lot from Pramila Jayapal tonight that suggests that there's some progressive softening on some stuff. They've now seen some of the legislative language. She's trying to put a very positive face on the fact that we're very close. But I'll say again, I don't know what will happen next week if Terry McAuliffe loses in Virginia by a lot. It's not going to be good for the president, and it's not going to be good for the intestinal fortitude of a lot of Democrats in the House, I would say. So we'll see where it all goes.
Caitlin, President Biden came into office touting America is back on the world stage. He has his first meetings in Italy tomorrow, where you are, then the climate conference in Scotland next week. How does he explain having a Democratic House, Senate, White House, and yet he can't close this deal?
That's going to be a big question for the president. And his aides have tried to tamp down, the expectations surrounding that, saying that these are other world leaders. They get domestic politics. They understand what the president is dealing with. But it's bigger than just the climate provisions, I think, in this bill. It's turned into something bigger, because earlier this week, that's what the White House was saying, is that he wanted to have this deal in his hands. So when he does go to the climate summit, he can say, hey, look, this is how the United States is leading on these provisions, and we expect other nations to follow suit. But now what you're hearing from Democratic leaders is it has turned into more of a confidence in governing aspect, like what you were saying, where the president at the last summit, where he saw a lot of these world leaders about 4 or 5 months ago, the G7, he was saying America is back. This is proving that democracy works, and this is how we govern. And of course, now that there has been a lot of chaos surrounding his own agenda, that is something that the White House is focusing on. And even House Speaker Pelosi saying that the president needed a vote of confidence from Congress.
Around this time yesterday, the White House was effectively declaring victory on this big bill and saying he had all Democrats on board. We sort of pumped the brakes during the show because Democrats we were talking to were saying, not so fast, we haven't seen what's in it. So what are you looking at as the president travels abroad with that going on behind him in Washington, a meeting ahead with President Macron, and then up to the climate summit where he doesn't have anything yet concrete to show that the United States is taking those big steps?
Yeah, it's certainly not June and those kind of victorious hugs that he had with world leaders on the beaches of Cornwall, and then when he did his trip through NATO and through the European Union. This is a very different time. Firstly, because world leaders have been disappointed with some of the things the president has done. That withdrawal from Afghanistan, in which he didn't consult with some of his key allies in Europe before pulling American troops out. The fiasco that followed it did weaken America's image amongst European allies. And then, of course, that deal with the Australians over the nuclear submarine technology that Keir was just talking about has alienated the French as well. So that's been a problem. So that's on the international stage. But make no mistake, Willie, foreign leaders, foreign publics watch very closely what's happening here in Washington as well. They know that the president is in trouble with his own party. They know he hasn't been able to produce his own big pieces of legislation so far. They've seen his approval rating slip since that victorious tour of Europe back in June, when he was up above 50%. He's now up just, hovering around 40%. That doesn't look good. And so it's a weakened American president who arrives in Europe for the G20 meetings and then the climate change, and as you said, hasn't managed to produce a climate change deal. It's a tough week for him. This is not the trip that he took in June. It's not the trip that he would like to be taking.